Hello and welcome to another StarCraft 2 co-op video. Today we'll be uncovering the secrets behind aggressive deployment against Terran. Why do they sometimes send Ravens and sometimes they don't? This is a question that is really important for Vorazun, especially because she doesn't have any good anti-air in the early game. Aggressive deployment is a mutator that deploys extra units onto the battlefield approximately every 2 minutes. If you attack the enemy with cloaked units, detectors will also be deployed alongside the wave. However, Terran's detectors are also spellcasters, which can be problematic if they show up in the early game. After doing a bit of research, I am almost 100% certain about this new discovery. Take a look at these two clips. In the first clip, the enemy does not send any Ravens. Now take a look at this second clip. In the second clip, it does. What happened? First of all, the enemies you face are divided into multiple factions. You can see this in MM maps when you click on an enemy and hold V. The enemies that are green belong to the same faction. As for aggressive deployment, Faction 1 deploys units to attack Player 1. Faction 2 deploys units to attack Player 2. On Oblivion Express, Faction 1 is on the left and Faction 2 is on the right. It is different on other maps, with some maps even having 3 factions. So, how does a faction decide whether or not to send a Raven? 1. You attack a faction's structure or pre-placed unit. If you attack Faction 1 will send a Raven. In this first clip, I attacked a Marine that came out of a bunker. As a result, Faction 1 sent a Raven with the 450 AD wave. Let's look at another example on Scythe of Amon. In this first clip, I attacked the structures between the main and the expo, which belong to Faction 1. As a result, Faction 1 sent a Raven with the 450 AD wave. The units guarding the sliver seem to belong to a different faction. In the second clip, I decided not to attack the structures. If you just attack the attack wave, even if it's part of a faction, a Raven won't be sent with the AD wave. And lo and behold, no Raven at 450. As I mentioned earlier, some maps even have 3 factions. On Temple, Faction 1 is at the bottom left, Faction 2 is at the bottom right, and Faction 3 is at the top left. If you attack Faction 1 in the southwest, it will send a Raven. If you attack Faction 2 in the southeast, it will send a Raven as well. If you click one of their units and press V, you can see that this is green, just like the units in the southeast. So you know they belong to the same faction. If you click on the other AD wave, its color matches the buildings in the southwest. If you attack Faction 3, however, no Ravens will be sent. Faction 3 doesn't send any AD waves, so messing with them doesn't result in any Ravens.
Amon strikes against the temple. We must defend it.
There's a second condition that must be met in order for a Raven to be sent. You must attack Amon's forces. If you attack the infested, no Ravens will be sent. On minor evacuation, Amon's forces don't have any buildings or enemies on the map, so Ravens will never be sent. On Dead of Night, if you attack the infested structures, no Ravens will be sent. But you might be thinking, you attacked the pre-placed Marines. There seems to be some inconsistencies. On this map, as long as you don't touch a building, you're fine. But on missed opportunities, if you clear the enemies in the first and second areas with your first shadow guards, a Raven will be sent at 450. As you can see, Faction 1 didn't send a Raven because I didn't touch their structures. Faction 2's structures are on the right side, which I didn't touch either. By the way, if you attack both factions' stuff, naturally, both AD waves will come with Ravens. However, if you attack any Terran buildings, ravens will come with the AD waves. Ravens will be sent around the map to try to hunt you regardless of what you attack though. Since I attacked Faction 1's bunker, this raven was deployed. It's gonna get revenge by harassing my workers. So now the question is, how can I avoid fighting ravens? On most maps, the answer is you can't. On OE, SCVs will build forward structures, which you will eventually attack. As you can see in this clip, ravens started coming at around 13 minutes because I attacked Faction 1's bunker. However, Faction 2 didn't send any ravens for a lot longer because I tried not to bother them for as long as possible. When going after the 6th train, I had to clear some of Faction 2's structures. As you can see, I cleared the bunker during time stop and the missile turret using Shadow Fury. Perhaps time stop doesn't count because the units are frozen and thus don't know what's happening to them, and Shadow Fury doesn't count because the Shadow Guards are invulnerable during this period. In the subsequent AD wave, Faction 1 sent a Raven, but Faction 2 didn't. I'm not sure why. The Science Vessel is part of the Tier 6 wave, so it should be there. The first Raven from Faction 2 was sent at 23:20 after I attacked their stuff. Despite all this research, there seems to be a few inconsistencies. In this run, Faction 2 sent a Raven in the second AD wave, but none for the next 15 minutes. I have no idea why. Also, despite Faction 1 having sent Ravens with every wave after 13 minutes, the wave at 23:20 didn't come with any. After testing this theory on other maps, it seems to be pretty solid. So the TLDR is that Ravens will come if you attack any pre-placed units. On these 5 maps, you can kind of delay the Raven because you don't have to attack any pre-placed units or structures until a bit later, giving you time to get Corsairs. On Dead of Night, you can hold off until day 2, which means you won't have to deal with Ravens until the 3rd AD wave at around 9 minutes. On Void Launch, you can completely avoid touching any pre-placed units as long as you let the waves come down the ramp first, but this means you have to skip the bonuses. On the train map, SCVs start building bunkers around the time of the 3rd train, giving you more than 10 minutes to prepare Corsairs. On Temple, SCVs move towards the first Thrasher at around 7:30 to 8 minutes, but you're probably better off clearing the structures in all the lanes. On Scythe of Amon, you can avoid Ravens altogether if you don't touch any structures between the slivers. On other maps, cover your probes with a Dark Pylon so that they can revive if a Raven kills them with some auto turrets. Get Corsairs before Dark Templar if possible, or get a few Stalkers to push the pesky Ravens away. And that's all for this video. Like and subscribe if you learned something new. Share your experiences with aggressive Ravens down below. Thanks to all the members who are supporting me. If you'd like to join, check out the link in the description. And while you're here, check out the tests for Vorazun, since you probably came here because you're a fan of hers. See you there.